What's going on, guys? I'm Zach from the Lumios Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we will be talking about what happened to the Pokemon we see in Pokemon Legends Arceus that we don't see later on in the Pokemon timeline. I'm talking about the Hisuian forms, their evolutions like Overqwil and Sneasler, the evolutions we saw like Weirdeer or Ursaluna, and the legendary Pokemon Enamorus. So without further ado, let's jump right into why these Pokemon don't exist anymore. So first we're going to begin with Enamorus. This one actually is pretty easy. It talks about how it came from across the sea from this other region. So it's very likely that since Enamorus is a legendary Pokemon, that while there probably is more than one, it probably is very few in numbers, so there's a decent chance that it actually still is in this region, and we just haven't visited that region yet. It has a lot of Chinese inspirations in its design, like its Therian form. It's actually based off the Chinese soft-shelled turtle, and its whole quartet is actually inspired by a Chinese mythology, I guess. So definitely possible that it's just in the China region, whatever that name may be. Maybe we'll see it in Gen 10 or something, but that's where it is. That's why we're not seeing it anymore. It's just in the China region. Now this next one, with the forms, each one it's a little bit different. So for Hisui and Braviary, I think it's as simple as it would fly into Hisui when it was too cold where it lived. Now it's too cold in Sinnoh. We see this as well, and this is a nice little segue, but with Sneasel. Sneasel just changed into the ice type over time because it got colder and it had to adapt to it. Clearly, Hisui got colder as it transitioned into the Sinnoh we know today. So Braviary stopped visiting, Sneasel changed form, other things too. Perhaps that's the reason that Qwilfish left. Qwilfish went to warmer waters and, eventually just adapted its Jotonium form, which, of course, also would explain why Overqwil is no longer seen, and with Sneasel, explaining why Sneasler is no longer seen. With Goomy, could be a similar thing. Goomy's a slug. Slugs can't really live in cold environments, so this version of Goomy likely died out or was brought to the Kalos region, where it eventually transitioned into the Sliggoo and Goodra we know today. I said Goomy, but Goomy doesn't have a form change. It's Sliggoo and Goodra with the form change. Then you have the starters. The starters, it's actually pretty simple. Hisui became less wild. It became more cultivated by people, so they no longer took on these wild forms when they evolve. Same thing with Lilligant. Over time, it became more domesticated. It stopped needing that fighting type to fight off predators and fight off people who were maybe harming the environment or harming it. Now it became more domesticated, lost that fighting type, and lost that more violent look and became a much more peaceful Pokemon. Zorua. Now Zorua, unfortunately, we know from Hisui and Snow, but also even just the games and Zorua's backstory, that it did not have a good relationship with people. As sad as it is, Zorua and Zoroark were likely hunted or pushed out of the region by humans, and that's very, very upsetting, but sometimes that does happen in our world as well. Then we have Avalugg. Avalugg, it's pretty simple. It just kind of migrates to another region. Maybe it's because of competition, maybe it's because of the amount of humans starting to cultivate the area, but it just hopped in the water and floated off to somewhere else, maybe France. Now, then we have Growlithe. Growlithe, very similar to Lilligant. It became domesticated over time and, got a haircut, lost the rock typing, and, with nobles kind of going away because it's no longer a super tribal place. People are now cultivating the area. It's not a wild land that needs to be watched over by Pokemon. Well, Growlithe no longer kind of needed to become this fierce legendary, and again, just became more domesticated. Voltorb, we kind of get a flip of that. Voltorb is very happy Hisuian Voltorb, and yet it talks about how the people kind of saw it as a danger, so they would always kick it out of the villages and stuff. That probably led to Voltorb secluding itself in more abandoned places. Think about how you see it in the Kanto power plant, and over time, by being exposed to all that electricity, kind of just taking on a pure electric form instead of electric grass, and that would also explain why Voltorb is now angry and no longer a happy little guy like Hisuian Voltorb. Then we have White Stripe Basilan. Now this is actually an interesting one because White Stripe Basilan is not a Hisuian form, it's another striped form of Basilan. So the fact is, it could still live in another region. It maybe didn't die out. They could very well, in Scarlet and Violet, say, hey, White Stripe Basilan lives in this region as well. They could easily do that. But they may not, and maybe they did die out. Either way, it isn't a Hisui anymore, and I imagine the reason why is overhunting by people. That happens to a lot of fish, and it would especially happen to Basileigon, because they are based off of salmon, and any of my seafood lovers out there knows salmon is delicious. So that's probably why Basilan and Basileigon are gone. Then we have the evolutions: Ursaluna, Weirdeer, Kleavor. Why aren't these here anymore? Well, with Ursaluna, it's a thing of Ursaring evolves with peat blocks in a full moon. So this one's easily explained. Sinnoh doesn't have moons anymore. I'm kidding. Sinnoh doesn't have peat blocks. Sinnoh definitely still has a moon. But you probably can't find peat blocks in Sinnoh anymore, and you can easily retcon this by, in Scarlet and Violet, saying, oh, we actually can find the item peat blocks here in the Scarlet Violet region, so that you can evolve Ursaring there. Weirdeer, over time, it became less wild in the region. Stantler could live a little more peacefully, no longer needed to learn Psyshield Bash. Again, maybe in Scarlet and Violet they do. Who knows? Kleavor. It talks about how Scyther is able to evolve into Kleavor because of a certain rock that grows there, which is likely the augurite it uses to evolve. Over time, probably humans, mined that, sold that, found some kind of value in it, and just over time the region lost its source of that, so Scyther no longer evolved in that. Again, Scarlet and Violet could very easily pop back up and say, well, we have it here, and it can evolve there. It's kind of nice how they wrote these evolutions a little bit open-ended, to where it's kind of like maybe they still evolve, they just can't in any region we've seen because those requirements haven't been met yet. Then we have Paris, Spheal, and Vulpix. Now, I know what you're thinking. Those are not new Pokemon. No, but they are Pokemon that are in the Hisui Dex, despite not being in a Sinnoh Dex. They're not in the Platinum Dex, the Diamond, Pearl, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl Dex. So I wanted to talk about why these could be gone. So Spheal, again, as people take over, very similar to what we said with Avalugg, it could have just migrated to another region. We actually see in Hoenn, it lives in a cave, so it's kind of secluded. We see in Galar, it lives in the Crown Tundra, pretty secluded. So it seems that Spheal isn't, despite seeming very friendly in the games, isn't too fond of humans, and just got up out of there. Vulpix, probably the climate got too cold for it. It either died out or migrated. So maybe it even is from Hisui, and it just, because it got so cold, it migrated down into Johto and Kanto, and that's why we have them in those regions' dexes, because Johto and Kanto actually are connected to Sinnoh, so that could be the case there. Now, Paris is pretty easy to figure out. Paris is the single most annoying Pokemon on the planet in Legends Arceus. Probably someone got sick of that, and they started exterminating them, and they hunted Paris out of existence there, or at least, again, pushed it down to Johto and Kanto. Being a little funny there, but to be honest, that does happen sometimes in our world, so that actually could be the case. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on why the Hisuian Pokemon and forms, evolutions, all that fun stuff no longer exists. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you have theories of your own on this. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, talk about all things Pokemon here, and have a real good time. And until next time, I will see all of you later.